Are buy-to-lets really dead in the UK? In this video, we're going to guide you around the pains of buy-to-lets landlords are facing and how they can potentially overcome that. This video is for people who invested in buy-to-lets and are using a limited company. We have got a separate video. There's a link up here that we talk about when you own properties in your own name and all the headaches like Section 24. Hi everyone, my name is Zee Razaq. I'm a chartered accountant and a tax advisor who specialises in property accounting and tax, and we're going to break this down why buy-to-lets a lot of people are struggling with and what you have to think about in the property investment journey with this property strategy. Let's get straight into this. We're going to have three areas we're going to cover in this video. What is a buy-to-let for people who may not understand or may not know? Number two, what is a good buy-to-let deal? And number three, the fun stuff, right? How do you structure buying property investments like buy-to-lets in the modern day? So let's get into this. First of all, what is a buy-to-let? And what a buy-to-let a lot of people think about is buy-to-let is either I buy a flat, and I'm sure my team will do a much better picture and you'll see it. It's a flat, you may have a house, my drawings, artists at work needs to improve, and this could be a semi-detached, it could be a terrace house or fully detached house. And what people normally do is rent all of this out. That is what people call a buy-to-let, and they normally take a mortgage that reflects that. And I hope people sort of understand this is really, so they're renting out one unit as a whole thing, so either a flat or a house, and they normally rent it to, normally flats are down to individuals or couples when they're just on their journey, or when they're just starting a family. Houses are normally for people who have got established careers and they're growing their family, and that's what normally people rent it out, and they then tend to be people who are investors. I hope that makes sense what buy-to-lets are. Right, what is a good deal? And this is really quite key because a lot of people come to me and they ask me, Zee, what is a good deal for buy-to-lets? Because everyone seems to, you know, it's a very good beginner's property strategy in the right circumstances. So in my view, it's not dead unless, unless you evaluate the deal correctly, and these are the tools we're going to talk about how to evaluate. First of all, and I want to try to keep the numbers simple. So let's say I've got a buy-to-let and I'm buying it and it costs me 100k. I want to try to use round numbers. That's the purchase price. I'm going to forget stamps and all the rest of it, but let's say all of it came in 100,000 to keep it. That's purchase price plus stamp duty plus legal fees. And you'll probably say, where am I saying you can buy it? You got places that you can still actually buy 100k properties, but for simplistic reasons, that's what I'm going to talk about. Then what normally happens, people come along and they're like, okay, I want to take a mortgage, a buy-to-let mortgage. It's normally maximum, normally 75%. I know that's not everywhere. So let's say that means 75k is the mortgage. What people then do is, what is the rent on this? So if I'm breaking that down, the rent, let's say you get £500 rent per month. I'm going to try to do it per month because you sort of get a feel for how this works out. And I'm going to try to break the cost down because it can get complicated. So I'm going to try my best. Say for £500 rent, obviously if the mortgages, I'm going to put up here, I'm going to do it in red. I know this may vary, and I know everyone's going to say in the comments, Alfie's going to be seeing them, the mortgage rate can be 6% and all the different, it varies. I know at the time we're speaking it's varying, but let's say the rate is 5%. Yeah, to keep it simple, right? So if I've got a 75k mortgage, what happens is, let's say the interest, we're doing an interest only mortgage, just a bit of view because that is the go-to, because if you do repayment from a tax perspective, it causes you a problem because you don't get a deduction for the capital. So a lot of people do interest only mortgages, right? Say at 5%. 5%, if my maths is right, I know Alfie will correct me on this, but it actually works out 5% of 75k divided by 12 months. We're trying to do it by months. Is what I'm working out. I believe my maths is right. That's at £312.50. Can't forget the 50. So that's your cost. And I'm putting brackets. That's how we look at cost. The accountants come out of me. All right. So we've got 312. Then what people normally do is they whack in some insurance, because obviously it's your property. I know this may vary, but let's say 50 quid. Alfie, you following me? Makes sense? Excellent. As I say, if Alfie's following me, then I'm all good. As soon as I lose Alfie, then I know I've lost everybody. Right, so you've got 50 quid. Right, then we've got one of the bits people forget is repair and maintenance. And I'm just putting in repair and maintenance, a 10% off rent. And that's another 50 quid. That's why I chose 500, because it just makes it easier. So if I add this up, I know there's other costs, but let's add this up, right? The total, then, if my maths has done me right, is the profit, total profit, 87.50. That's a profit. And that's not much. But then what we do is, how do we evaluate if that's a good number? There's two numbers that we've got to think about when we're doing them. This is a quick way you can whack a spreadsheet using this information. Two ways I would evaluate. Number one, how much is that a percentage of this number? So this number, the rent, how much return am I getting from the income? So we say return on rent. So if I do 87.50 divided by 500, that's a percentage, and I believe it's actually 17.5% return. It looks good, but the real indicator, that's just one indicator. The real indicator is, in order to do this deal, if you look over here, I've had to leave 25k, because I've got 75k mortgage. I've had to leave 25,000 in the deal, because I bought it for 100, I've refinanced at 75 or took a mortgage, so I've left 25,000 on my hard-earned money after tax. So we have something called a return on investment. This is the one that everyone goes on. They call it ROI. I'm going to put that in there, because if you actually want to assess, this is the deal that you've got to do. So ROI is going to be then a calculation, and the calculation will be, believe it or not, 87.5 times 12, because you're going to do an annual. So it's return on investment. So it's £87.50 times 12, put that in brackets, divided by £25,000. And I believe, if I get my percentage right, that's 4.2%. That return on investment, believe it or not, is before tax. So I'm going to write here before tax, because you have something called corporation tax. And what we've done here, and I'll call that A, is B, we've done this calculation after tax, because the corporation tax here, let's say you don't earn that much profit, it's the only company, it goes up to, the corporation tax can be 19% up to 26.5%, but let's say it's 19%. If you then do the calculation, take 19% of the profit, so if this number, take 19% off, I believe we have £850 profit now, and we do 850 divided by 25,000 equals, and are you ready, 3.4%. And this number here is the reason why most people are like, that's not worth it. Because if you go and put your money in a bank account, you can get probably more interest than that income for it, and without the headaches of people not paying their rent, the renter's right bill, the bathroom's gone, the kitchen needs refurb, all the headache, the roof's gone. These are the problems landlords are facing, because they've not understood how to assess the deal. What I'm going to talk about is, this is deal scenario 1. And what I'm going to do is what you want to do. I haven't specifically talked about capital appreciation, because capital appreciation, from my opinion now going forward, is going to be totally different to how it's been for the last few years, because income levels and debt levels, so what people are earning in relation to what they can borrow, are becoming quite distorted, and that's going to affect how much the properties appreciate. Everyone normally said every 10 years the properties double. In some places are, but most places now in the southeast, London, depending where you are, it's not happening. And even this 3.4% seems like a high return on investment. Before we get into scenario 2, what works, please do like, comment and subscribe to our channel so others can hopefully benefit from all the content that we're providing and help them on the entrepreneur journey. We really want families to be successful and be building wealth and getting to their long-term goals. So I'm going to go into scenario 2. This is what you want to try doing. If we use the same scenario, but the difference is, instead of buying the property for 100,000 purchase price, what we're going to try to buy is buy the property at 60k, and then spend 15k on the refurb, which gives 75k cost. But the market value is 100k. This is what we call forced appreciation. I'll write on here. And this is what you've got to do. So you've got to buy properties that are a bit knackered and you buy them at the right price. And right now, as we're recording this video in June 2026, I can't believe it, it's a buyer's market. So you can get deals. This is a perfect deal. And I was speaking to someone literally today about these. You can get these, but they're not easy. You need to really understand your marketplace. If you can, this will work. So the numbers before that we went through are still the same, but the only difference, well, they're still the same except one difference, because instead of leaving 25k in scenario 1, that's what it was. In scenario 2, you're leaving in 0. And this is the only way you can really use buy-to-lets. I know some of them you may get it that you actually bought it for 70k and then do refurb, you're leaving 10k in. The key is, in order to increase your return on investment, you've got to try to leave minimal amounts in. Otherwise, your money's going to get all locked into property and you're not going to get the return. And this way, because you've got forced appreciation, the return is what they call infinite, because you've left no money in, because you put 0 in. Because when you refinance, i.e. get the mortgage, say the mortgage, you're getting it for 75k, because it's done on the 100k, it's 75% of 100,000. And this is what they call a classic BRRR. BRRR means buy, refurb, refinance, rent, and some people put the other thing in, repeat. So this is the classic BRRR method. And this is what people have been doing for a long time, but it is getting harder because in most places you struggle to buy these deals. But if you're going to do buy-to-lets, this is what you've got to try aiming at doing. Otherwise you'll run out of money. And also the cash flow numbers will be obviously different, but you don't mind because you're not leaving no cash in this thing, and you're forced appreciation, if I get that D bit in there. So what you're trying to do is buy the property below market value, add some value to it, refinance at the right market value, and try to leave minimal money in. And that way you can go again and again. And this is what people are aiming to do. And right now it is a buyer's market, so you've got a chance. It is identifying the deals. And this is why we say it's a beginner strategy, believe it or not, buy-to-lets. It's one of the beginning strategies, because as you go forward, you really need to understand this, because you're going to run out of cash. And also with the returns, if you think this is infinite, as you start putting money in, as I was saying on the ROI, it changes. Yeah, so return on investment, ROI, is infinite. And this is what they call a unicorn. I know unicorn means these are the perfect deals. So this is a perfect deal. And I'm giving you the variations because the first deal is you put everything in. The second deal is you put nothing in ultimately, because you can get all your money out. So you'll get them somewhere in between, but more you leave in, less you're getting a return, and it's killing your property investment journey. Now we're going to get onto the fun part. How do we structure this to mitigate tax? Because that's one of your big issues as well. So let's get onto that fun. That's part 3. This part, how do we structure buy-to-lets? So I'm going to say B2L, buy-to-lets in limited companies. And always get advice on your scenario because they're going to save you a lot of fun. And the first key thing is when you buy it, what a lot of people do, it depends on if you're going to buy more properties and you're going to do it. The easy bit is just buying it in a standalone company. We call it an SPV, fancy name for a limited company that owns property, and you can buy buy-to-let in there. B2L, buy-to-let in there. And you would say, let's say your husband and wife, the shareholding, or say dad and mum, they would own 50% each. And that will be the shares. And that is, get some planning on this because you do different class of shares, very important, because then you can, depending on how much income you're earning, you can then be more efficient how you take money out going forward. The benefits are, first of all, it's easier, it's very simple, and you can do it if you do one property, and therefore you're trying to mitigate fees of running the company. The issue is that as soon as you start doing a different property strategy or you start scaling, people then realize, hold on, I didn't really want a standalone and it cost a lot of money. And what we normally say to people, if you are going to scale, get it started correctly at the beginning. So get a holding company and then have a SPV owned and then have the buy-to-lets. The reason being is if you change property strategies, and as I said, buy-to-lets are beginner, there's different tax implications. And we've done videos on property investment structures. You'll see the link here somewhere about basically how you use group structures. I wanted to check on that because then you don't have to spend a lot of money inserting a holding company, and we have to do something called a share for share exchange, and it's a bit of cost. You can then change property strategies. The biggest challenge of this, as we go through the series of videos on different property strategies, is when you change, there's different tax implications. So that's why you may need a number of different subsidiaries as you're going up the property investment strategy aspect, and obviously up the pay scale. I hope that's added value to your property journey. Thank you for joining us, really appreciate it.